Hello, everybody. How are you? So, Black Oak, Arkansas, for some reason, for a very long time, opened for every single band that came through LA. I must have seen Black Oak, I don't know, man, honestly, half a dozen times at the Hollywood Palladium and maybe the Santa Monica Civic. They were doing some outdoor shows at local colleges. They were everywhere. And I finally sat down with Jim Dandy Mangrum, and we talked, and he was a good old boy from Arkansas. And yes, he was the archetype for David Lee Roth. This is way before David became Diamond Dave. But yeah, man, fun interview. So check it out, and I hope you dig it. Bye.
Why don't we start just basically when the various members of Black Oak kind of met up and kind of basically what was happening
in the
back
beginning,
in Arkansas. Yeah.
In the beginning, there was a lot of confusion, and we were all loners, and that was about 10 years ago. We taught each other how to play about 9 years ago, 8.5, 9 years ago, because we run around together for a long time, and I guess about 2 years. And I guess we're all pulled together because we're the same kind of people, but we've lived together all them years, and we've gone through a lot of changes together. That was back in Arkansas, and Black Oak is a real place. It's the first place we ever practiced in, and we figured a name needed a reason, so we just called it there, And it's all been a good life. Our music is just what we are, and what we do, and things we go through. And we like to feel that we're trying to be honest men and have long hair. And the things we lay out, like whether it be spiritual, sexual, or social, it's just what an honest man goes through. And we just lay it out in the open, and a lot of people sometimes freak out over it, but it's just what he is, I think saying what's good or what's bad is what he is.
You started off, you were playing drums?
In the beginning, I banged on the drums some, but see, I was looking for my calling, and one night when I got really drunk, I found it, because everything I did, whether it was playing guitar, like I know chords and stuff, and I can play them myself, but everything I've ever done, I always did it too loud and too hard. Beat it too loud and too hard. And the only things I found that were right for me was the scrub board and singing, because the way they play, I can't sing too loud. The other groups I could. I'm sometimes too loud and aggressive of a singer. I'm primitive in a sense, because where there's a will, there is a way.
What kind of material were you doing back then? Was there anything that has shown up on later albums, or was it all borrowed stuff, the blues and rock and roll?
When we started out by hearing people like, the first live performance we ever saw was by Jerry Lee Lewis at Sikeston, Missouri at the Watermelon Festival. And this was years ago. This was 8 years ago. And he flipped us out over the craziness, and we used to do Goodness Gracious, Great Balls of Fire, and we did things that we do all kinds of standards, and do them our own way. We like to take pride in doing things our own way back then. And we got in early. When we left, we all were left home early in age, and started going out supporting ourselves by getting our first band house was really a shack. I mean, really a shack. But it was to us, it was a thing. And we got out from home. I left home after I was 13 and kept checking in, but that was before then, And so we were all kind of loners that met one another, and we tried, in the music, it helped us to earn this survival, this living, and to be able to be examples at the same time, and a reflection of everybody who's the same as we was, They was coming down hard on us back then, but because they didn't understand what we looked like, because we didn't look like the ones that dropped the bomb, I guess, but it was all, like we were just like them. We were just bullheaded, and the only reason the hair ever became a point with us is because it became a point with them, because other than that, we just let it get long from letting the wind blow it or quit putting oil in it, and it wasn't no big thing. But music turned into being our whole meaning, our whole life, our whole existence. We live it, breathe it, eat it, and that's just it. Togetherness, we believe, is the source to everything. And our example is being together is one thing we're trying to do. We was together before rock and roll, we'll be together afterwards, It's a magic carpet which we hope to get up on the mountain You know, people have really built a psyche about the mountain, Fable Mountain. Getting up there, when people get up there, well, then they want to hear them say something. Sometimes people get up there, and once they climb to get up on the mountain, they don't have the same thing to say. You know, or they got something else. All of them got a different thing in mind they want to say when they get up there, and then that tears the people into confusion again. And we're just trying to keep ourselves to be ourselves because we are the common people. And I guess that's why we play masculine, aggressive rock and roll, because the common people is in a pretty crazy state of mind right now, and pretty frustrated from never being able to follow their dreams, and their fire and brimstone is that frustration within their heads, you know, of being incarnated backwards and also doing their kind of jobs that they don't want to do and everything. And we watched all our parents and all our loved ones and all the people around us do this, and rock and roll is the way to let it all out without turning into fighting, you know, because they just want us strong enough to fight anyway, and they're pointing the directions where to go fight, you know, keeping us strong enough to do that and weak enough to be their puppets, and we ain't gonna be no puppets, you know. That's what we're trying to be. Family thing for sure, but it's a new kind.
You were playing in bars and at dances and clubs back in Black Oak. Were you building up a following? When did you first leave, like, Arkansas?
Arkansas, we went to New Orleans from Arkansas and got turned on there. And before that, we played in Legion huts and armories and rented out. You know, there wasn't a lot of clubs. You know, the clubs was for the rednecks and the cowboys and stuff. They was all in there, farm hands and everything, which we was until we grew out long hair. But then if we just asking for trouble, we did a bunch of club gigs. But our main thing was renting out our own, supporting our own. And when we went to New Orleans, we had kind of a chip on our shoulder. We had long shoulder-length hair, but we had a chip on our shoulder because we felt like the whole world was against us, man. I mean, living in Arkansas, it looked like it was, you know. We learned after getting out of it that we did have something to be proud about in our own tradition, in our own people, in our own land, because we saw how limited their knowledge was and how they were kind of, their strings were pulled from a higher source that had acquired this, but were being very bureaucratic with the power of controlling, or the power of anybody else coming up thinking that something ain't right, you know. And you know, people say, well, if you don't like it, do something about it. And say if somebody ever has balls enough to say, well, I'm going to do something about it, they turn around and say, well, where do I start? You know, and that's the way all them people are back there and everywhere, and they just get to where they ignore what's going on or what is. And we think that rock and roll, like everything else, is kind of symbolic and getting it all out. And we feel, you know, we take pride in taking this as kind of, it's the only way to look at our life as having some real good meaning and turning it out to be something, because we wasn't born to be rock and roll stars. We're country boys. Now, we're getting to that plateau to where people have always related to these labels or whatever it is, you know, and we've become socially and economically in the eyes successful, you know, or whatever. And that's why now they're take more pride in us back home in Arkansas. We bought all that land back there and got this big lake lodge, and everything looks like fairy tale land, and they're all flipped out, you know. But what it is now they know that we found a way to get out from under the burden, and we don't have to be puppets. And they see also that we are the same kind as they are, because even though they run us off, we're coming back to home. You know, where we smelled as kids, we smelled the air and the flowers, the same kind of trees and everything about it. And I don't know, it's all everything relates. And we lived in New Orleans a while and got turned on and got out from under this and learned how to look at it. And the final touch was when we got out, and we lived in LA for about 2 years. And it's crazy out here, but it's just crazy enough for us, you know, to get just enough to get us to where we could really see us back there. You know, you had to really get out of it to see it, or to see it the way it was back there, you know. And people out here have pride in country people, into a sense, you know, earthy people, you know. They may put them down a long time, but if they once get faith in somebody, you know, they think, well, that's far out, you know. They like to see somebody sometimes that is I guess what you'd call a salt of the earth, you know. We ain't that much a salt of the earth, but we come from that breed, you know. We are, I guess, space cadets or something, you know, because we fly around through just the cosmos and look at everything, you know, get a view of everything from our togetherness. Kind of a mind's eye view, you know, our group mind.
You got involved in studios. You were knocking around some studios in New Orleans.
Yeah, some in New Orleans.
Isaac Hayes, I heard. And,
that was Memphis. We lived in Memphis for a little bit.
Booker T.
Right, Stax.
Right. Did they kind of give an incentive to maybe come out here?
No,
No.
no, they didn't give us anything except friendship. You know.
You just felt like LA was what was happening.
Well, we figured, that it's either Los Angeles or New York, and New York was too cold for us Southern boys at the time, and we figured that we'd come out here, and if we couldn't make a living, we could crash out on the beach and be beachcombers. You dream about a lot of things when you're in the cotton patch. Just sit there picking that cotton or chopping it. And that's all you got to do is get in beat and get in your rhythm and whatever, picking or chopping. And just keep going down that row, finish your row, and get on another one. In time between, you dream. And that's what all of them do, because none of them want to do it. They want to be the boss. They want to have their own farm. They're all farmers, but the day of the small farmer is over, and it's the big farmers with machines that came in after, say, the grapes of wrath and all that hit Oklahoma. It all affected all them central, states as far as the economical state went. Everything's controlled. Here I go getting into that crazy stuff, and all I really care about nowadays is finding a woman for a night and rocking and rolling and let people get things out of their system, because that's the first step. We got high hopes, we're men that believe our calling is more than just rock and roll, but we don't want to bring it into rock and roll. We've got a funny way of showing it, but we had to lay a foundation with the first couple of albums, and we know what it is that most people have in common, and also what most people are scared of more, and that's sex. It's very controversial in this day and age because so many taboos have been thrown on people. So many people have this natural thing that everybody knows they tend to lean towards, and they feel guilty about everything. We're trying to get rid of a lot of guilt, and where people can be good, and not think that they're bad for doing things that they've been taught were disgraceful or whatever, or morally unfit, because morals is good, but high morals is that very, high ideals is great, but even logic, man, after a certain point becomes unlogical. It's all a tool, and it's all something which is to better your own self, and there's a cosmic self, and they get too much into moral virtues, and they got to deal with now also. They got to deal with the universal now, and to where you can just treat one man like you want to be treated yourself, and not because of the fear of hell or the hope of heaven, because if you're a good man in this life, and if you give your life for good, and if you give it, that's what this life's all about. You get a life in return. And if you're good, within your goodness will be God's lightning rod. And I believe there is a God, And we also believe that sex is nothing dirty about it. It ain't no sin to be horny. It's a sin if you turn it into one, if you abuse this good feeling. Because that's what it is, a good feeling, man. It's the best feeling you can get naturally. That's what we feel about it. And it's why definitely everybody in the world relates to it. Everybody does. Everybody likes to do it. If they ain't never done it, they're frustrated about it. If they ain't never really been able to do it in the cleanliness of their mind that they want to do it in, and what love really is about. And we are incurable romantics. We are just that's just the way it is, I guess. People, we found that we try to throw out our life, and we think we're simple people and common people, but there ain't no simple way to throw out a life and throw it open to people, And we found that people have been turned every way but loose on so many hypes and so many things that ain't been so. That they've believed and they've listened and believed in the lies so long, and they've disappeared on them, and the bubbles are busted so many times that they can't believe the truth no more. Because our life is really something which is ironical. It's almost too picturesque in the American dream. It's almost too much what people write about. It's almost too much of the whole trip. But it just happened. We were in the right place at the right time and found each other. And we just decided that the only thing that could keep us in this world to survive with the right thought to die with. We believe, a common belief, that the last thought, this whole life is to earn a good thought to die with, and the last thought you die with is your next seed for the hereafter, and that everything blooms and blossoms out of that. And if you ain't right, man, if you got doubts and if you got disappointments at the end, well, then you're just coming back to try again, and that's your fire and brimstone I have to keep talking about. And I don't want no brimstone to hammer on. I don't want to beat on the wall. I want to do some good. but you don't expect to work miracles or world changes in one lifetime of one vehicle, because we believe that you can just get it out and do your best and get it started, because we believe that life lives on until it's ready for nirvana, or ready for that next that hum of energy, which is the creation, the great creator, which created goodness. We think about this every time we make love, that the God, the creator, this whatever created, all of this we see and started a chain reaction. And one thing is all relative, everything relates. And when you make love to a woman, you see that it's meant for good. It's meant for good. And that every man makes his own heaven or hell, like he does with whatever woman he's with, or whatever work he's doing, or whatever land he's on, or whatever house he's in, or whatever situation. Everything relates. You pluck a flower, you can disturb a star. They all tied together. That's why, we believe a little bit in everything. Astrology, we believe everything relates, but nothing dominates. Ain't nothing that makes me get along or not get along with a Cancer or anything else, when I believe it makes a difference on what time of year you're born, because different flowers grow at different times, different trees and different people. A lot of different things happen at those times, and the stars relate in time. And I don't know. We try to get everything to where it just all can be a flow, and people don't like to look at it. It's hard to flow. We want our life to have more meaning than just a saint, ordinary Tom, Dick, and Harry that plays rock and roll, because we dig rock and roll, and we do a lot of that, man. But it's also our outlet, because this life here, we it could happen, it could end any day. We live on day to day, and we are existentialists in a sense, and we're not so heavy into it that we're atheist, but we are very much, we're into it about as much as Christ was, and we believe that everything is possible except the impossible, even the end. And you got to be ready for that last thought, man. You got to be ready also that it can go on. You got to be hoping for the best and prepared for the worst, and never be disappointed. I hope I get me a woman tonight.
We should end it right there.
You're right, I'm turning into a motor mouth, ain't I? I get dingy sometimes.
No, that's interesting. When did you come out to LA?
Oh, we've come out here 3 times.
First time.
First time was right when they tore down Pandora's Box. Remember that? That was right there when they was having all that riots on the strip and all that. We come right after that, and we got a piece of Pandora.
Did you?
Piece of the wood. Yeah. Ricky got it somewhere stashed away in the mountains. And the second time, we came in for about a week. We went broke that time, went back to New Orleans. Second time we came out and did it again. We just played a free gig out at Griffin Park, and it was in the summertime of 1968.
Did you play played some gigs at some colleges and stuff, free things?
Yeah.
Because I think it's the first time I saw it.
And well, the last time we came out, we lived for about 2 years. We came out in 1960, the end of 69, and 70. All of 70 we was here. In 71, at the end of 71, we went out on our first tour, I think it was. 71, 72, and 73 is when we started going nationally. And we waited around very patient for record contracts. Of course, we had to be, because easy listening was in heavy, and I ain't no easy listening croak, And there ain't very many that sound as like I do, that has a fat sound, hard sound. I'm a hard person. My body's been made hard through time. But we feel that the hardness we got comes from the softness of our heart, of trying to keep our heart soft, And I don't know. L.A. has done one thing for us, in California. That's why we say that it was just crazy enough for us, because it helped us to see ourselves and be proud of them people back there whenever we didn't understand why they were so down on us. And it's weird that we saw it like that, because most people here think about the Easy Rider trip and all that, and they're very leery of the scene down there. And when it's all over, it's just there's less law down there, and more people let their feelings out. But it's done within the law here, like it's done by their own law there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
They do it with paperwork here, and it's the same thing. It's just as painless and on a long-term basis. You know, and they still down on you, and the system's gonna come down on you. Ain't no, this is the best system there is on earth, and that just shows you the best ain't good enough. You know, and change is the law of the universe, and we believe that a lot of these imaginary lines man has put on the earth we want to erase someday, and we believe rock and roll's got a lot to do with that. And we think that rock and roll has got to where it's kind of stagnated, and we're trying to do something about that too. Because you see all these old timers coming back out trying to do it again because nobody's taking it anywhere. Technically they have. They got, you know, all them studio cats, they done their part, man. They're getting out there, they doing this, but look what they doing. They're still doing what they did 10 years ago. And sure, people like it. They like to feel familiar with things, you know. They like to, but also deep down in their subconscious, they want newness. They wanted, you know, the same anxiety which came out of this land of the free or this revolutionary America. They came out and they didn't have no rock and roll when they had Revolutionary War or nothing. But still, the English, that's why they play it. That's why this land of the plenty here, this is where, you know, the jack is or whatever, and that's what motivates most of the groups. And what we've learned has become, you know, we like to treat it as green energy or whatever, you know, and it's to use for good or you know, that's what, if you want to use energy, it's whatever you want to stand for. To us, it's to use for good. But we see them, you know, they know that this is where the green energy is, and so they start getting into it. And rock and roll is a big thing. Some are really, I really get behind people like Jethro Tull and Procol Harum and things like that, which are you can tell are English. And the Beatles were English, man. When they came into it, they were English. They moved into an American thing, but they were English when they came into it. And they always dug America. They said they were inspired by Elvis and all them people. Mississippi Delta, man, Chicago blues, and that's what everybody's getting into is the salt of the earth. You know, and it's like in between soul music and country music, it's that common people thing, and the media a lot of times want people that ain't common to do it so they can have something they can lay off, they can make and break real quick. Because rock and roll has become more than what they thought it would be when they started making the first phonograph record. They never knew rock and roll was going to happen, you know, and it's turned out to be a great media, a great power. That's why they make and break them, and that's why fags are so heavy, you know, because it's something which nobody stays in forever, but always comes in and out. And if they're going to, you know, Alice wasn't going to stay that forever. He knew that was a sure death, you know, but that's an attraction also. And people have become, they don't like to see something up on stage that they see sitting next to them. They like it to be sort of like a circus. They're getting into showmanship. But like we believe that a lot of the thing people like to relate to is something on stage to themselves too. You know, and I guess David Bowie and all them proved one thing, that there's a lot of queers in the world, man. And it's good because they got something to relate to, you know. And we're musicians, so we can't just say, well, whether the music's good or not, because we believe the music is from the poetic genius of whoever's doing it. They're showing something with the inside of them. And if they're just doing something which they've sold out to everybody, you know, everybody's got a little piece of them and there ain't nothing left except an ornament. Well then, you know, if that's what some people need, well then some people need ornaments. But we're trying to live a thing, to be real, to be truth, you know, and there's people out there that did it before that rock and roll really came from. And Jerry Lee and them people coming back out doing it now. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire, and he's alive again, man. He's got that London session thing. And we like seeing that, man. We like, they stand for it, and they're trying to remind everybody of it. And they don't want everybody to do what they're doing. They want somebody to take it on. And rock and roll is just good times music. And we want it to be good times, but we're not in a good time state. It's also that aggression. It's also that rebelliousness, you know, that America's got. America has that rebelliousness. They rebel against being forbidden freedom. This is the land of the free, and that's what it was built upon, whether it was high ideals too high by our forefathers or not. Thomas Jefferson was a great man, and all them people was, but we got to figure out, you know, they may have overshot a little bit, and it don't mean that they're wrong on the eventual thing or the whole immaculate plan, but it can be that we, you know, that a lot of zealous followers, just like they did to Christianity, have taken this political trip, man, this government trip, and turned it into something else. Thomas Jefferson said, man, the best government is the least government, you know. Strong people don't need that many strong leaders. And tribal units is a very far out natural thing, but people lost here into being protected from nature and being controlled by the controllers and used like puppets. And rock and roll, man, has got to come out of America and be able to let people feel this thing, what is going on, and what is, without everybody getting down about it, because we don't want to get nobody down. Ours is good times music, and it's like trying to figure out a way from see what is, and also being able to have a flame of hope that burns eternal, of hope for the future, having hope for the future, and not saying that this has got to come in our lifetime to see it, but to know that we've all given our life for it, and that's the life in return that we'll get for it, giving our life for what we believe, and it's like saying we're taboo breakers, it's time for change. It's like reorganizing, regrouping. A lot of these good things, high morals are good, but a lot of them are bullshit, A lot of these high morals and like I believe that moral virtues are the cause for the unbelievers and their laws. I believe that all this is a big mess, which they've gotten a little out of hand, and it's time for us to kind of re-coordinate things and take what's good out of what everybody's learned, take it right down to home, the good we've learned from our parents and the stuff which we know that they're just confused by and controlled by. Because they were the generation that was almost bought and sold, and end up with a life which some of them were lucky, they ended up with some good out of it, but a lot of them gave up their life to mostly wars, and to a lot of different things. The common people, not the ones that happen to be at the right place at the right time and earn some jack over a lot of this intense energy, but I'm talking about the common people which end up, digging the ditches when they come back home and not being able to get no jobs and not being able to get no Social Security and not being able to get going to have to get stand on the line for the food things or food stamps, all that. Sex. That's what it's all about right there. If you can get your mind clean from all that, you can really make love. Right? I think about it every time I'm with a woman.
You're not married?
No, I've been married twice.
Really?
Yeah, and marriage, I think, is one of them things where people need ceremonies, and I got hooked into it too. It's another way they can tie the strings on you and your kids and everything around you. But I believe that everybody needs a mate, and I believe that everybody also needs a ceremony to cherish this divinity with, because everybody needs to reach for a divinity within each other, because to be as one within man and woman as one, that's the way for ultimate sex, where sex is both and sex is one. It's not this unisex, and it's not all this, not unisex, it's not all this bi stuff, bisexual stuff. I think it's unnatural. Of course, I don't put it down, because some people, that's the way they live their life, and they earn their thought in the end for that, Whatever they want to do is all right with me, man, as long as there's still people down there and there knows that there's still people which are the common people which don't understand all this, man. They don't understand what's going on, and they just wondering what's going on, and we're trying to be our own way of being just what we always was, and people couldn't understand back then. We were just, we make love now no more than we did then. We were as horny then as we are now, and we didn't think it was no sin then, and we don't now, People make big things about it, and it's one of them taboos that we want to break, It's like that, and a few of the religions have gotten really out of hand. We believe that spiritual realization and spiritual conclusions are good for the mind, and to be able to adapt these things. And people put too many rules and too many monopolies on goodness, on say Christian. You can't be good if you ain't a Christian. I had a policeman tell me that in Kansas City. I said, there's some really good people. I said, goodness is, He said, well, Christians, Christianity is goodness. I said, well, yeah, Christianity ain't got no monopoly on it, though. I said, there's goodness when people ain't never known of Christianity, What about them people, where'd the word come from? Them space people that come down, man, and had the word of God in there, and they started being like these missionaries that go over to darkest Africa and tell all these people, or some of these, it's like they're still in the rock age, and there's a God coming down. They build an airplane. That's their monument, to this fire chariot. It got me all stoned out when all that was happening, because we used to talk about those kind of things. There's a lot of space people in here, in this whole world. Lord knows. Lord knows we've tried.
When did you sign with ATCO?
That was almost 4 years ago, and it was right here. Ahmed Ernigan, the president from Atlantic and ATCO and all those, came down and saw us in the corral in Topanga Canyon. We just played there last night, came sneaking in. We did it like it wasn't nothing, wasn't no publicity on it or nothing, just for the old times of it, when they kind of word of mouth thing, and ended up being cars parked all the way down the mountain. Yeah, it was something. Went up there and it was packed and everybody was just fried out of their heads on everything from psychedelics to good old smoke, you know. And it was just fine sipping brew and having a damn good time. And it was one of them old-fashioned parties, and we snuck in and did a party and did one set and then left just for old times. Everybody freaked out. And that's where he saw us and dug our picking. He dug our picking, and I guess just got touched by the warmth of the fire.
You played the whiskey. You played the whiskey too.
Yeah, we played every place. We played the whiskey. We first got to Hollywood. We even somehow ended up in was going to play for one of them artists and models balls things. It freaked us out, man. You walk in the middle of something like that from Arkansas and you just don't know what's going on. Anyway, that's how we see what is, you know. We didn't gradually grow up to this or adapt to anything, you know. We didn't learn to adapt to these things that everybody's learning to look over and say, well, that, you know. We believe to each his own, and you know, every man's created equal, and it's a free world. But you know, everybody is an example too, and they got to know that. You know, we steering for going, you know, crazy directions, and we gonna sit and do our parts being normal, being good old normal and outlandishly normal. You know, we shouting it loud enough to where we can compete with any outlandish thing. I can't wait on tonight, man. Tonight is gonna be so good. Palladium was a rock and roll crowd. So many good-looking women here, man.
Might be. There should be some party afterward.
Yeah, I should think so. This is gonna be a hell of a party. We're gonna break a few taboos tonight. I tell you right. I tell you so.
How long did it take to gather the tapes for the new album, Live Album? How long was that recorded?
We just did it as one night.
Really?
Yeah, it's the same night. All the pictures were taken. Well, 2 nights really, but we took the sound and even almost all the pictures from Seattle. But we did Portland and Seattle because of the buildings. And Wally Hyder turned us on to the building. And it's like Paramount Theaters and really built just right for recording, for live, you know, not too big and just big enough to be really good sound and enough padding in it, you know, to where it's got acoustics that are nice. And it just turned out great. We didn't have to overdub nothing, man. It was a nice night. The people were great. We'd never played there, and the response was just tits, man. Couldn't say no other word. It was just tits. And we had a lot of new songs we put on this album because we didn't want it to be like everybody else. We believe people out there were wanting live albums, but everybody jumped on it and we're trying to drain them with this. We're trying to squeeze milk out of the turnip because they saw, oh wow, live albums are commercial, you know. But we always knew that people always liked our live shows, and we always had respect for that and our relationship with the people because they made us, and we wanted our live album to be something special to us and them. And we needed it to have some newness on there too, so we put 3 old favorites on there, and some that were real good old favorites like Uncle Elijah and Lord Have Mercy and things like that we didn't put on there, you know, because we figured, well, we gotta have some room for some new ones, and we put those on there, like Getting Kind of Cocky and Hot Rod and Up and Gigolo, which is a lot what we are. And they can wonder why. And we got a foundation back there that people bared with and put up with, when really they knew what they were attracted to was the way we moved our hips, and that we was really virile and good, common, ordinary, honest people, you know. And we realize this and are proud of it, but it's so crazy to rock and roll in this day and age. I've gotten to where I've really, you know, we're really space cadets. We're from Arkansas, and it was hard enough to realize that freaks with hair down past their titties could be from Arkansas, you know. But that's true. That's true, and we try to make everybody believe it is true. We're all from Arkansas, except for Tommy. He plays drums. He's from Mississippi. Across one of the imaginary lines that man's created for patriotism to be able to fight each other. You know, we hope someday they can be loyal to the world like we are, you know, to the earth, third planet from the sun. But you can only stand as an example, you know. The rest of us have been together for all the years we've had. He's been with us for 2.5 years, well, almost 2 years now. Seems like, oh, wait a minute, it ain't been that long. 1.5 years. Seems like forever, though. He's just like one of us and crazy. Don't do him. Yeah. But it's like we into things, you know. We are the taboo breakers, and we're here to reshape things, and we are icon breakers and smashers, and but we are here not to, you know, the things that we're throwing away. We hope by regrouping and getting everybody to work together, we say we can figure out what they want. You know, everybody says, "Why ain't it how it should be?" You know, everybody wants to know why the world ain't how it should be. You can walk out in nature and see the garden where man ain't sitting there and tore it all apart. You can see that it is a heaven on earth. There is a heaven on earth. That's why we got that land, man. Just so they can have a place that they can go and have a reason and have a symbol that it's still here on the earth. There's still a garden on earth, and the man ain't got hold of it yet. Up in the Ozarks, we got this mountaintop. We're giving away square inches, and we started it way before the album, and it grew to such popularity that we put it in the album too and started giving away deeds for square inches of this land, this mountaintop, which looked over across this beautiful valley up in the Ozarks. And we're going to put, it's like a little park thing. People come by and they can feel a part of, and they can picnic on, and they can sit, and it's got like it's like a little park with a telescope on it. You can look out across the valley, you know. But it's like honorary. Nobody's going to be able to live on it because they only own a square inch, you know. We're going to take care of the taxes and the upkeep and things like that. But like it's a real legitimate contract too. By, you know, it's done by the way laws ask for deeds to be. It's pretty. We made it pretty where you can hang it on your wall or whatever. But it's mainly, I guess, our way of saying thank you to the people, because medias ain't really ever helped us, you know, because we weren't really at appetizing with what was going on at the time, and we had a good relationship with the people. All these freebies used to go and see us at, you know. Like the people made us, wherever we was, New Orleans, Memphis, none of the radio stations, I'm talking about mostly airplay. We really got treated good as far as people like yourself and say medias, which are more for the common people, newspapers and magazines, which people, they read that, you know, they read that. You get into media, and I'm not attacking nobody because we don't need the media. We'd like to have their help, you know, on our basis of friendship, you know, and we need all the help we can get. But we don't want to sell ourselves out, you know, and we don't want to do things. We don't want them to make us, because we know they can't break us. When we get up there, we don't want nobody to be able to pull us down to keep us from saying what they, you know, because if they make you, well, it's them that's got the power. If the PR makes you and the media makes you, it's them that's got the power, you know, and they take that away from you whenever you get up there to where people want you to say something, and then people ain't going to listen, or they ain't going to, or you get down there and you ain't there no more. We'll get up there our own way, and the people do us favors, man. We're going to have favors to do for them. And we're going to get up there, and ain't going to be able to take us down too easy, you know, without the people doing it themselves. Because we've tried to conserve and take us, treating it precious as a relationship we found with the people. In all these free gigs and all these things we've done, and concert tours. We tour constantly, man. We're the most consistent group that's out touring. And we believe it. It makes us strong. It makes us strong in spirit, heart, and body and soul, you know. And it's hurt us a little in not having quite as much technical knowledge as we needed to know in the studio, because everybody else spent their life in the studio learning how to get that hit or learn how to get it across, and, you know. But there were no people in there, and all we knew is we wanted to reach the people. You know, now we're getting it down in record. We had people like Tom Dowd and great people like that, which is some of the best producers, greatest producers Atlantic we've ever met, you know. And we've met people which are very, very into it and taught us what they've known. And we're just country boys, but we're learning how to get it on that record where the people ain't, but to where we know the people buy it. That gets to the people, man, and it gets to more people than you can ever do physically. And them same people that got us there and got the dream to come true on that land, you know. We're trying to stay there and not just get on the land. It's like right now we could go and stay there the rest of our lives. The land itself would support us. We've got 1,300 acres that we're going to build on. It's going to be our permanent homes once we got time to spend on the building and on all the designing and everything and the builders. And we're going to do that. And we got a lodge. We got a lake lodge up next to Bull Shoals Lake up in the Ozarks that we're living in right now. It's a temporary thing for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. Well, we ain't got time to do it together. It's going to be intense. We know it is. But after videotapes and then later on and finding visual and keep our sound going with records and stuff, we'll have time to get into that a little bit later and still have our own personal life a little. But we don't want to hide away in our sanctuary and not give the people the reward in return of this feeling we have, you know. we touch and go. We still live in them square boxes of hotels and still drive on the asphalt, of the highway and through the asphalt jungles of the cities, on the fork of the streams that pollute Mother Nature's bloodstreams, And we still do that. And we still go out and tell people the good life is in the land, And we don't really get to live it ourselves. We touch it now and then, 2 days out of every 2 or 3 months, or something like that, or a week maybe out of every 2 or 3. But that's what keeps us going, is being able to love women and find women that love loving us for what we are, really, and not for being a rock and roll star. Because we don't go on it as being labels, as groupies or this, that, and the other. Nothing. It's just a woman. If they ain't really digging us for what we really are, well, then we don't want them. Because we can do without. We're horny, but we ain't, hard up. We want it, but we don't need it. Because we have our good times, and we're content with how much we have the goodness of this life here, and that's what it's all about. It's right there in bed, and if you've got a clean mind to enjoy it, you can feel the heaven inside of both of you, and we've realized this within one another, and we're trying to say thank you to the people and go on past that and trying to do something for them, because they think that's why they put us there, is because they believe we got a little bit more going for us. The few that have done that, and the majority that have gone with us for other reasons that have all had in common, which is hot and nasty and things like that. The few have listened to more than the hot and nasty, in hot and nasty itself, it says, when I come a knocking at your door, let me in and I'll tell you some more, That's what's a little bit farther than hot and nasty, But hot and nasty is what the whole world's about, knowing how to do it without guilt, how to work up a sweat at doing anything, and work hard at doing anything, and knowing that's what this life is about, is working hard and using this vehicle for what it's for, using these limbs good at making them things like Michelangelo. He used to like sculpturing. Some men like being carpenters. Some men like doing anything, but use your hands and your vehicle for what it's meant for, working hard for the goodness of anything, for the goodness of everything is everything, man. Whatever's right for everybody, and thinking about the other man and letting them treat you like you treat them. And we believe that sex is the way to get everybody to realize it, because that's one thing everybody's afraid of and still does. If they don't do it, then they're really in bad shape. Yeah. In a nutshell.
How long do you see Black Oak, Arkansas as a music group?
Music group? Well, we'll always be putting out records as long as they have any demand for them, in which we see great promise in that, because we also have a certain magic, which is trust within one another and loving one another, which a lot of groups ain't got anymore. And we realize that medias don't make us or break us, that togetherness does. And that's where the proof of the pudding comes out. And we're going to be together. We was together before rock and roll, but together afterwards. But also look at country music. Country music lives forever. And you have people that live there forever. They don't live their life away in a few years like most rock and roll musicians do. And some stay there for, like they become monarchs, like a Elvis and Jerry Lee, and people, very few, and even the Stones have been there for 10 years doing Mississippi Delta music, But that's because they're good at it. But I mean, they're still doing right here. They're doing Mississippi Delta music, which is the real thing, and which everybody out here are digging on what they are. They like to hear their story and hear their story being told. And as long as they dig that, well, then we'll be here. And we'll always be together as Black Oak, Arkansas, as the family Black Oak, Arkansas. The Black Oak family is going to be a very powerful, influential family. We are on a power trip only because it was necessity. It was necessary. Because this is a computerized society. And now they're treating us like we're waving flags around because we got long hair. And it became a point because of them, out of their guilt for throwing the bomb. And we didn't look like them. And they figured that's how it was going to come in and infiltrate the nation. Whenever they're worried about patriotism, they're worried about each other, and we see it as being a bunch of bullshit. Everybody ought to get it together with each other and learn the good traditions and the good virtues of every country and some heritages of other countries, which America won't look at because they think they got the only way. Or all these ways can be blended with the goodness of each one and throw out the badness of each one and get a more righteous kind of thing. And we see this as maybe not being able to be in this lifetime, but we're going to shout it till we die. We're going to shout it our dying breath, because that's what we get the hereafter for. We're given that. We're given that because we get a life hereafter because of it. It's a trade. And it'll forever be that way. You get out of it what you put into it, And we see a bright future for us as a family. We want to destroy politics. We want to do a lot of things, which you could sometimes got to get in the middle of things to be able to explode them. You know, you got to plant something in the middle of them. But got a lot of things which we don't want to enter into rock and roll. We don't want to be like the Airplane, which we can respect as their effort, but we don't believe that everybody wants to get into rock and roll and come to gigs and see that. You know, when they get there, they want that feeling to get out, but it's not so much. We believe it can be got out in sex and raunch and into feelings in common and relative feelings, which they go through every day, common day experiences. But we believe our social elements should be no more than we're your revolutionary all-American boys. Here's example elements, you know, and things that go through everyday occurrences, and we're your everyday hippies, and they can relate to things like that, to where they can notice our life and see things like that coming down and learn from that way. In rock and roll, we want it to be like Hot Rod and Hot and Nasty. We want it to be like our real life and like we really are and how we really are. You know, it really is. We are that horny, and I think everybody is. Just don't everybody talk about it. You know? It's just we see a big future for that, you know, because in general, we think everybody's going to turn around and want some of this masculine, aggressive rock and roll again someday, and we're trying to get it to where when they're, you know, we know that there's people out there right now that do, but it don't get played on the radio that much. Mostly, most of what you hear is queers, you know, and that's good because they're, you know. They can do the AM trip and it sounds right on AM, and still they're freaky enough to be accepted by the underground set and also the overground set because they're pretty enough, you know, and they're attraction like a circus attraction. But we look down on it is because a lot of people back home and all through mid-America and everywhere else wanted rock and roll to turn into something they can make fun of, and we ain't gonna let them make fun of us, not them common people, which we are, and we ain't gonna turn them into being able to respect us. That's what we are, even though we got long hair. And whatever it takes to do it, we're going to do it. If it hair lips every Chinaman in China. And that's what we're going to do. Rock and roll is a magic carpet to get to the top of the mountain and be able to shout out what you feel. I guess that's a high ideal. Definitely a big deal to turn. But we having a hell of a time doing it. We shouldn't have done nothing else in our life, man. It's like we feel so lucky, or so, you know, we feel like we've been blessed with each other and being at the right place at the right time, and we believe in fate to a certain extent. Everything relates but nothing dominates. We believe that fate is like every crossroads you come to. It can go a lot of ways, you know. Every man makes his own heaven or hell, and fate is out there, and you have an own destiny, which is a possibility. You have your high destiny, and you have several destinies which are possible that you could choose, which would be wrong decisions, or more decisions which you could be content with and other things. But we're trying to reach for the highest destiny which we can. And to us, it can be very simple and very common and do this. And still keep this simple heart, common heart in there. And your body is going to grow hard. Your vehicle is going to wear out. That's true. But we believe that the life hereafter will acquire another vehicle. And if we still are not, and if the life hereafter, if we've done what we've come here to do and we're going to go on, then we'll go on. But if in our life hereafter we come back, you know, we have the belief that we'll be in a higher form to be able to do more in the same thing we're doing, and that's why we're meant to come back. That we had something, we was going on something that was worthwhile. You know, everything relates, and we just pray for that. Because if they ain't relating to what they see up there, then we're in the wrong place. We'll go back to the mountains. But it's sure looking good. Sure looking good. Sold out tonight. Yeah. Sold out 3 days ago, man. Just tickled us pink. Because this place means a lot to us, and we ain't been able to play here a lot. You know, we spend a lot of time living here, but we see a lot of people still keeping the faith, and a lot of people which believe like we do. There's a lot of earthy people here, you know. This may be Hollywood around here, and this may be a lot of different kinds of people, all walks of life, and a lot of craziness, confusion, and a lot of intense energy, but it's creation of much goodness. Many good friends have we here, and many very earthy, righteous people which have broken a lot of taboos and are just living for the universal man and the universal talent, and just being able to love one another, man. Just that universality right there just kind of gets it to where people feel one another, you know. And I think people here are just like everybody else. Just have to bear it with a lot more intense energy, you know.
Are there any plans to go over to Europe or England?
Yeah, at the end of this summer. We've had offers all last year, and the farthest we could go within the law was Canada, because we were all still on suspended sentences, because you probably heard we got busted early in life about just stealing our equipment and stuff, because nobody signed for us in Arkansas having long hair and wouldn't give us jobs to earn money to buy it. But we were determined to play music, and we weren't going to let the way the balance was out of balance in the system come down on our heads, and we was banging our head against the wall, proverbial wall. And so we figured if the balance was out of the system, we'd go with the balance of the universe. And we just decided if we thought we was in the right, to do it in whatever way we could. And we took it from places we hated most, which were the system, were schools, were the scholastic things, which we believe are completely messed up, where most people get messed up in the beginning of their life, because they ain't got teachers there anymore that love to teach. They got people that are doing a job because it's something. They're all frustrated because they're on their they got their fire and brimstone in their heads, and they're sitting there, and you're going through it, and they don't want to teach you, and you don't want to learn. They sit up there and they talk in a monotone voice about breaking down a sentence, and you don't give a hoot damn about that sentence because you don't use it anytime. I say it instead of eating. Because what does difference that make in my life? And all this stuff. I didn't need algebra. Some people do, but the main thing is people need to teach the thing of the world. And your reading, writing, and arithmetic, that's a necessity. You got to have education in this world to have knowledge, because it is a computerized society, and you got to be able to compete. But the thing is, I don't know whether it ain't what's right and wrong. That's just what it is. But also, you could have it better. They could create this more character in their teachers, by inspiration, if nothing else, by helping the few that you have got, because there's other people. We met teachers that we were inspired by. If people wanted to make them examples enough to build the character in others to follow that character, you'd have them trying to find what people's destinies was. They'd be teaching people of the world and what the world is going through and the situation that's going on now, teaching them how to not be freaking out over it and how to deal with it. And they'd be, instead of hiding it from them and just trying to keep them on their PR or propaganda or whatever they want them to know and take wherever they're going to visit this summer, And then more like they could have teachers to where they could try to take care of a child and say, what is it you want to be in your life? I stood up in the 4th grade, and that's what started all of this. And whenever they was having everybody stand next to their desk, say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I never thought about it. And all of a sudden I stood up and I said, I want to be a rock and roll singer. And everybody laughed. They laughed, and it hurt my feelings as a kid. I got embarrassed and almost brought tears out, because I was always kind of rebellious and always kind of hot and cocky when I was little. And from then on, it was like a personal vendetta for me. Show them, whatever that was, I just wanted to be a rock and roll singer because I dug it, I saw Elvis, and I saw him raising a lot of cane, and everybody thinking, oh my God, oh my goodness. And he didn't seem like nothing to me except a very high-spirited dude. Whatever he's doing, it was riding high and acting like it, he was sitting on top of the world and just sang like he was, And you were nothing but a hound dog if you didn't like it. And I liked what he was saying, because they were the first taboo breakers. They were saying, I'll do anything that you want to do, just don't step on my blue suede shoes, man. Just give me freedom, Jimi Hendrix was another one of them true taboo breakers, man. They all worshipped him, and he's sitting there and drinking and smoking with the best of them and loving all them women, man. And there's good people, man. There's good people for you that do good and raise a lot of people for good. And then you see these hypocrites that go around saying they're good, and that's what they're supposed to follow, and you go to church on Sunday, and then they go out and they cheat and gamble and stab people in the back, in between Sunday. One day to go to heaven, 6 days for fun. What's that thing? Chances of going to heaven 6 to 1. That's man's thing. They create this illusion of time because they sitting there and they got this vehicle and they're worried about how much time they got on Earth, because they ain't too sound on this hereafter business, They can't conceive that much. They ain't got no conclusions yet because the preachers and the teachers and all of them is taking it to what they need it or what the government needs it to be. Turn politics and religion into things which they ain't. Christianity ain't what Christ was. He sure wasn't without a dork, He had 13, 14 women sitting there crying and fighting over who he loved most when he was in the tomb, man. They got about 20 years of his life that they got torn away. They didn't think was worth showing, and their main thing was breaking down the image of him being a man, to where nobody could relate to it and try to follow an example, to where they trying to make him a god, you know. And if it's that, well, then every man has a divinity in him to be a god on earth, you know. But all these are his words and labels they going by, because really all he is the goodness of man. He was a righteous human being, you know, precious righteousness, man. And he was one of the higher forms, and he drew a finale which was heavier than Buddha's and heavier than a few others, you know. But they all were these kind of space people which brought the word down and showed how that it could be done and acquired, and heaven can be on earth as well as in the next beyond, and it'll have its heaven until you get to the source, you know. And that's the way the trip is. And it shouldn't matter so much we see it, but it does. And we're trying to get just people noticing how it is. I keep getting back to that, don't I? That's true, though. It's true.
Are there any other plans in store for Black Oak? TV shows while you're here?
Well, we got this this is the party tonight, and we'll be leaving after tomorrow. We're gonna do some visits and stuff, and
How long is the shooting last?
we've steered away from TVs in a sense because they haven't given us what we think true potential is. We were on a Smothers show before it got not the Smothers Brothers, but Tommy Smothers' Primetime Organic Space Ride. It was syndicated in different places, and we went on that because Tommy was a friend of ours, and everything was in the same building. Our office is here, and we come in and out of here all the time. But we believe that it's a great media for us, because videotapes is going to be the best thing that happened to us, and it's amplifiers, because we don't believe in playing rock and roll and standing flat-footed. We have a natural visual without doing all the model trips or without doing all the clothes changes, you know. I'm very outrageous myself. I'm very spacey in an earthy sort of way to be from Arkansas, but I'm also competing with all this glam rock and all this stuff, and we're into what we're doing. I really dig the outfit I wear, man. I mean, it's like, it's timeless, it's nameless, and we believe things like that have power, you know. Like, it's the kind of thing you can dream on. Like, I wear a harness and things which you could almost see gladiators wearing in the days of when they sending them out there to fight the lions and stuff, you know, or whenever they's doing their thing. And we feel like we're the gladiators people have made, which is turning against them. From the strength they made us to fight their wars, we're turning it somewhere else, you know. That's what we feel, you know. And we're trying to be shiny enough and glamorous enough to compete with this fag rock, which has become very commercial. Yeah, because, I mean, we know that popularity is the power, and they like to see something that they can't see sitting next to them, like I say. But we want them to relate to things which they believe that they are, and that they can relate to in everyday life. And we also got a lot of blue jeans up there, you know, country boys as we are. And they can hear every time I open my mouth, they know where I'm from, you know. That's just the way it is. That's the way we want it to always be. Things is going great in life. It's grand.
How long does the tour last?
Got 90 more days. We've been out for 16 months. This will be 20 we've been out. And, well, that's what we believe in, staying with the people. And, you know, like, we don't get a lot of airplay, bro. We don't get a lot of airplay, and that's, you know, that's a lot of power. People get used to hearing these things here and there. But we getting it now because they've resisted as long as they can, and we are in demand. We sell out concerts. You know, people are beginning to wonder. I was sitting over talking on KLOS to Alan Burton, you know, which is a good friend of mine, and like they was getting phone calls in, and like this jockeys ain't got that much to do with it, you know. They got hands on their throats just like we do, you know, that they barely can't swallow. So many people got a hold of their throat. But the thing is we're taking phone calls in, and the people was doing talking over the air, and some of the girls says, well, why don't radio stations ever play your records? Because like you guys come in here and you sell out concerts, and you do it every time, and people really boogie. And other people, and they don't play your record, and other people come in here and they get 200 people in the Troubadour or something, and you hear the records for the next year. You know, and we said, you ask them. You know, we're not going to get into it, we're not going to attack nobody, and we're not going to say nothing. Except that, you know, if it's a difference in taste, if the elite and the critics are getting away from the common people, we don't know. You know, if it's because we see David Bowie being really big in Los Angeles and New York and a few places which think Los Angeles and New York are in. But the people in the common places, you know how many people are doing in St. Louis? 1,000. You got 1,000 people in St. Louis. Because, I mean, they say, what's this queer doing? You know, what's his game? You know, what's his dude? And, you know, we don't want nobody to hold it against nobody because of it, but also it shows you the way it is, you know. And we don't want the critics. We want them to be with the people. But if they ain't, we don't want nothing to do with them, you know. And we found that we've, you know, through a lot of really good underground papers we've kept alive, and through contact with the people, because that's the only ways, you know, underground is how we've stayed alive. But we want to be overground. You know, we want to be on top out there with everybody else to where we can say something to that mass majority of mass. You know, the silent majority, which don't have FM radios, which don't get underground newspapers, which just have that country AM electric radio that they turn on with that one little knob. And it's got a volume switch, and then you pick out your station, you know. And that's what we're trying to get on. And Hot and Nasty in its day and age wasn't the kind of thing to get on there. But now it's more controversial. In fact, right now they're having a thing on the radio because of things which are sex-oriented and talked about or sung about on the radio, you know, because they think that you know, a lot of programmers and a lot of the people of the system and have gotten thinking that the disc jockeys are getting to be too much control of what they're playing and trying to please the people too much, because they're trying to get them now. They're taking the power away from the disc jockeys, trying to anyway, and trying to give them good pay and other things to make them stay there and keep their charisma, and at the same time turn it into programming it to what they want it to be. That's why you got a very select few kinds of songs. That's why hits are made. You find a good one, man, you're going to play it 100 times. If it gets to you, you know, wow, since somebody with a good song this time I got here, man. And people hear it all the time. They say, that's great, man. That's great. It's got through all this and it's a good song. Still a good song. And it's just got crazy. And we ain't giving in, but we're going to make it.